friends. My name's Mackenzie. This is my channel, Think Too Much. Welcome to my East Village apartment. So let's start off in the entryway. This is what you see when you first walk into the apartment. We've got kind of a wine cabinet that's also like a coffee bar, as you can see, with all the little mugs at top. And then our little kitchen. Got the little decorations up top. Pictures for the backsplash, which, I mean, I think they look cute, but they're not destined for long in this world due to their position. I will say that. The kitchen's pretty small, as you can tell, and then it's also kind of doubling as our entryway. So I would say like the genesis of this room was really, I think, our little island that we picked up, and it was always meant to be temporary, but it's just kind of stuck around for the last couple of years. And I actually contact papered both this surface, and I also contact papered the surface of like the cabinets that are installed here. So that's part of the attachment too, because that was incredibly difficult to do, and I don't think I would ever do it again. But it really started with the island, and then from there we kind of built out. I knew I wanted the shelves, and I wasn't totally sure how to position them, and like I was obsessed with this decorating project when we first moved in. And so I have like a little sketch of this, like essentially the vignette that I created, and like pretty much brought the sketch to life, and I was pretty happy with it. And yeah, the wine cabinet was another Facebook Marketplace find. Admittedly not the most practical, because we just never have that much wine at a time. So there's like kind of a lot of good storage space that's being used, but it does display our glassware and our mugs really nicely. Our fridge is kind of a mess, and I think I prefer it that way. Close to all of our magnets are from places that we've traveled in the past. It makes for a messy, but I think sentimental and cute fridge. So the kitchen has this nice arched little entryway that leads us into the living room. By East Village standards, it's a pretty big living room, which, as you can probably tell, does not mean much. I love this desk. I picked it up on Facebook Marketplace for $100. The reason it was cheap is because it was really difficult to transport. This mirror, Max actually found on Craigslist. Very proud of him for this find. One of the hardest things, at least for me, when I'm in a new space is like trying to figure out what to fill it with. I think, especially because this was our first like adult apartment, Max and my first adult apartment, there was a lot of stuff from our past moves that it was kind of time to get rid of, because it was either like from college or it was just kind of crappy and never really meant to last. And we essentially started collecting a lot of new stuff. We like kept some stuff, but it's a lot of new stuff, especially the artwork. It's kind of a hard thing to just like immediately have a lot of, because it's something you kind of want to accumulate over time. And these pieces, that actually is somewhat true. So like the lithograph print is actually something that I made in college because I was a fine arts student. Yeah, I really like it. It's of Hudson River Park, which was like one of the first parts of the city that I really fell in love with. There's this painting, or this like print of San Francisco, which is kind of like a bit of a surrealist San Francisco space. I found this online. I think I found it on Etsy, and Max is from the Bay Area. I love San Francisco. We talk about potentially moving there someday. And I really like the colors. It was one of the first like focal pieces that we really bought. This mirror I actually found on Facebook Marketplace. I was very much in my DIY era. And I had this like can of white paint that I was going to use like every last drop of. There's something very intriguing, I think, to the eye about seeing something that is very bulky and is very large. Like it's one of the largest pieces up there, but because it's white and it matches the background, its presence appears smaller. Another thing I wanted to highlight in this room, because I'm so proud of it, is my lamp. But this lamp I DIY'd. It's actually like one of those like shitty $7 ones from Target. And I actually initially bought it for Max at his old apartment, like before we moved in together, because he desperately needed filler light. I didn't really do anything with it then, but when we moved it into this apartment, I really wanted a fringe lamp. Moving and like decorating a space is so expensive. Like I didn't want to pay for one. It occurred to me at some point that it's like, you know what? I have like literally bought and used those like strings of fringe that you can get from the craft store before. Like why not just hot glue it to this lampshade? It was incredibly easy, and I just loved like the look and the feeling. So that's my lamp that I adore. One of the jumping off points for this room was definitely the rug. It was, I think, one of the first pieces of furniture we bought for the room. We had the couch, and it's not this couch, but we had a different couch when we first moved in, which was like a leather, so it was a good neutral. And we had the little accent rug in the back corner, but I think the first kind of defining piece in this space was definitely the rug. And it just kind of ended up driving a lot of the inspiration for the color in this room. And I think that's one of my favorite parts of the room is the color. It's like this play with like being really colorful without it being overwhelming. I think the colors and like the room itself was just supposed to kind of blend and evoke a feeling. And I do really love this living room. We love spending time in here. So it was pretty successful. I should also highlight the shelves. Floating shelves, like we landed on those because I think Max got it in his head that he really hates a bracket. So I was like, all right, we'll do a floating shelf, which was definitely tricky, especially for people who hadn't really installed shelves before. That was kind of a ballsy choice, but it's like doable. Like obviously we did it. I didn't want the shelves to be like perfectly symmetrical, especially because I knew that we were new to hanging shelves and I didn't want the pressure of like having to do it perfectly. So my kind of hack for that was to make it asymmetrical. That way, if we did inevitably hang the shelves kind of uneven with each other, it wouldn't be as jarring because there was already asymmetry to kind of break it up. And it really worked out. And I also really like the effect. And it gave us the opportunity to kind of put a larger piece of artwork on the shelf closer to the kitchen. It just breaks it up. I think it would have felt like a lot of stuff all stacked up together, having the two shelves on either side of this like former little mantelpiece. And I dug how the asymmetry kind of allowed the eye to like move across the room. We picked this painting up. We have been putting off getting it framed for years because we got it mounted and it was so expensive. It was like more than twice the cost of the painting itself. Like we picked up the canvas from one of those art vendors in front of the Met, and we love the piece. And it's just this gorgeous oil painting of the bottom half of the city, and it goes so well in this room. She actually also had a northern facing one, which was like the upper part of the city, which was gorgeous. It had this kind of like sunny, like sunset glow. And I'm actually really glad we went with the lower one because like the blue tones actually, I think, really complemented the space nicely. Like we have a lot of orange in the space, or at least a lot of the large pieces of furniture are orange. So the blues and like the cool tones in this piece actually, I think, complement the space a lot better rather than feeling like more of the same. I think that's genuinely all I have to say about the living room. I am exhausted. As you were finding out, this apartment really only consists of like 2 actual rooms, an entry space, which is also a kitchen, and a hallway. It's a pretty narrow hallway, and we both use it as like a little gallery space, and we've also got some coats hung. The pieces are kind of a combination of things that we've picked up. There's like a concert poster. There's like a few paintings that I made over the years, paintings that we've picked up from various vendors. It was like kind of a nice gallery wall to kind of slowly accumulate over time, and I would say we're still accumulating pieces for it. There's only like a few more spaces left, and we haven't found the right pieces for those spaces, but that was probably one of the slowest progressing parts of the apartment because we just knew like it's not really a focal point, like wasn't really a priority, so we could just kind of collect things that we really loved over time, or I could paint things that I really wanted to paint and have somewhere to hang them that weren't like embarrassingly central to the living room or the bedroom. What lives in our little hallway is a coat closet and a bathroom, and I'll take you into the bathroom now. All right, here's our tiny little bathroom. We're not going to spend a ton of time in here because 1, it's a bathroom, so boring, but 2, it's really tiny. There's only a shelf on this wall when we got in, so I installed this cabinet. We've got a few Yamazaki storage pieces, which I really like. We couldn't get an actual curtain, so we just got like a fancy liner. I mean, we could get an actual curtain, but we found that it really took up a lot of space and it just felt a little crowded for an arty tiny bathroom. And then of course the pièce de résistance, one of my favorite art pieces in the house. I thought it was so funny, and it was like a perfect bathroom piece. Like you gotta have like a done piece of art in the bathroom. That's what bathrooms are for. So we have arrived in the final room, which is the bedroom. It took a long time to get to the point where it had the vibe that I wanted, and we did thankfully get to that point eventually, at which point I kind of slowed down. But there are still like little things that I want to do. I think bedrooms are tricky because you both want it to like look and feel beautiful and cozy, or just kind of capture whatever vibe you want your bedroom to kind of give off, like help a person feel, but it also has to be practical, and it has to like store all of your things. And like, especially in New York with tiny closets and just like not a ton of storage space, there's definitely like a balancing act of like, okay, this is both pragmatic and it looks really nice, or kind of establishes the kind of feeling that I'm hoping for it to establish. So two favorite pieces of mine in here are probably the bird paintings, and this was an area where Max kind of helped us out a lot, because initially I was thinking we would replace the frames. I thought they were a little bit too on the nose, and he was like, no, but I really like the frames. And I'm so glad he convinced me against replacing the frames, because it's not like the whole room tries to capture this like specific vibe. I could see it feeling like gimmicky or like kind of cultural appropriation-y if we did the whole space that way, but it's just not how the whole space is. So it actually kind of creates this really nice little moment. This was another room where I think initially I was a little bit scared of playing with color, because in my mind, like, color was going to be like too jarring, opposite of relaxing. And I learned pretty early on that that was a mistake. I think when this room really started to feel good was when we kind of leaned into these like earthier, bright colors. And I think one of the things that like captures that the most for me, which is so funny because this was actually really a practical purchase, the blanket that we have hanging on this IKEA chair that I got for free on Facebook Marketplace, by the way. But the blanket on that chair, I love the color. I love the color so much. I'm just like obsessed with the green. It's got like this like orange thread to, I guess, like finish off the fabric's ends. And it was like a $50 fire blanket. And we bought it for our radiator because we live in the East Village and it can get really fucking hot and we have no control over the radiator, save for like turning it off. And even then, like, I think ours is broken. We can't turn it off. So I bought this blanket because I read on like a Reddit thread somewhere that like they actually do a pretty, like, one, they don't catch fire because they're fire blanket, they're supposed to prevent fire. Two, they like insulate the heat really well. And honestly, like, if you have an overzealous radiator in your apartment, buy one of these. They totally work. All of that is to say, I just love the color, and I found that once we had the color in the space, it was very grounding and just like brought a feeling that I really loved. It just felt like warm and cozy, and I kind of knew I wanted to chase after that feeling a little bit more, which would require more color. One of the first pieces that we bought for the room was this print of the painted tiger by, gosh, I think Delacroix. I remember it from art history class, but you know, not much more than Delacroix. Yeah, and I just loved the vibe. I love that it's like a sleeping tiger above the bed. I thought that was cute. I thought the colors were gorgeous. I guess I've never really sat and thought about it, but I think the room was meant to feel a little bit like earthy. I think something about like the earthy textures and tones without feeling overly gimmicky or really trendy. So yeah, just kind of, I don't know, it's echoed throughout the space. We've got like watercolor print, we've got watercolor paintings, we've got just kind of like a more brushstrokey, like lighter feel to some of the artwork, more like vulnerable feel to some of the artwork. Yeah, that's the bedroom. So that's it. That's the whole apartment. Thank you so much for joining me for this cozy little apartment tour. If you enjoyed this, please consider liking and subscribing. I post a lot of kind of like lifestyle-y content, sometimes talking about fashion, sometimes talking about, in this case, interiors, sometimes just life and like being 20-something in New York, being 20-something in general. Yeah, I will catch you in the next one.